Okay. So I think all of you are able to see the screen. Yeah. See what is happening is no, we are trying to use Google Meet, and I'm using some PPTs, and I'm also loading MATLAB, and then we are trying to run the program in MATLAB. Then I have some PDF files, everything available. So what happens? No, my system is having only 2 GB RAM, so it may not allow me to run such complex things. Okay. So what I will do is I will just explain the program today, but I will not run the code, because if I run the code, system gets hanged. But I will tell you how to run the program. You can try in your own machines. Okay. So I hope my screen is visible to all of you. Yeah. So let us understand some of the important concepts today. Then we will get into the project. So if at all my screen is not visible, let me know. Okay. But yeah, this is what we are going to discuss today. So I just trying to tell you what is neural network is all about. So here I'm just showing you a multi-layer neural network which has n number of inputs. So we call this as the input layer. This input layer may have multiple number of inputs. So in our case, the project what we discussed yesterday, we had 1024 pixels at this point. Okay, yeah. Then each of these pixels which are available here are taken to a hidden layer here. So this is one neuron. So now if you see, I have denoted it as N11, okay, then N12, N13, and it will go on till N190. So I have taken till 90 neurons. Okay, there are 90 neurons in the first hidden layer, and output of all the 90 neurons, outputs are given to a Tansig function, and you get A1 to A90. That means my hidden layer is now consisting of 90 neurons. Input layer may be more than 1024, and then I'm trying to process and I'm able to get almost around 90 neurons, and this is the first hidden layer. Then what is being done in this structure is I'm taking all the 90 inputs and then giving it to another set of neurons. That will be my second hidden layer, where I'm denoting the output as 1, 2, 3, and you can see there are N1 120 or A1 120. That means there are 120 neurons in the second hidden layer. Okay. In the first hidden layer, there are 90 neurons. Second hidden layer, there are 120 neurons. And output of all the 90 neurons are processed by each of the neurons in the second hidden layer. And then you produce outputs like here, like 120 outputs. Then you go to third hidden layer, wherein you are having three outputs here, three neurons. Okay. So N11, N23, and then N33. So there are three neurons here. Again, you're using the network activation function as Tansig, and you're able to produce three outputs. Okay. Then after having three outputs, then you're again processing the data, and you're having two neurons at the output layer, and you're able to get the final two outputs. So if you see the structure of a neural network, okay, there are 1024 inputs. I'm assuming there are 1024 inputs. Okay, then 90 neurons in the first hidden layer, and 120 neurons in the second hidden layer, and 3 neurons in third hidden layer, and 2 neurons in the last layer, that is the output layer. So this is basically the structure of a neural network. And in all these things, I'm using the network activation function as Tansig. Okay. Yeah. Now, if at all I want to define this network in my neural network, in my program, so how will we define this network in the program? Okay. So let us see how to define this in the program. I'm just trying to open MATLAB. So in my MATLAB program, so let us see how to define this network. Let me open the program, yesterday's program. Then now I will try to tell you how to define such a huge network in MATLAB. Okay, so it's a single statement that we have to specify there, and it will define the entire network. Yeah. So if you try to see here, let us see line number 28. In line number 28, okay, we are defined, we know that the input is of size 1024, and that input which is of size 1024 is now processed by the first hidden layer, which is having 10 neurons, and output layer having only one neuron, because our intention was to just do classification. Now, in the example what I discussed, or the network structure which I discussed, since there are 90 neurons, I'll define it as 90 here, the first hidden layer, 120 neurons in the 120 neurons second hidden layer, 3 neurons in the third hidden layer, and 2 neurons in the last output layer. And since all of them are purely Tansic, so I will copy this Tansic. Since there are 4 layers, I'll put Tansic, again Tansic, and then again I'll try to put Tansic. This is Tansic. So now, since first hidden layer is also going to have a Tansic network activation function, second, third, fourth, all of them are going to have Tansic, Tansic, Tansic. So I'm defining Tansic. So this is how you can now define your network. Okay. Yes. Now the issues in this program is why it is not able to classify. There are 3 important reasons. Okay. The first important reason is whenever we try to work with neural networks, okay, the most important thing is the database. So if you want to classify any data in neural network, because the network is trying to learn, okay? So since the network is trying to learn, we need to now make sure that we have huge amount of data so that the network gets trained to learn this information. So it is like, no, we all of us trying to learn try to ride a bicycle in our younger days. So we don't learn bicycle by just learning, trying to drive it for 1 or 2 days. We keep on doing it for more than 3 months, then only we start learn how to ride a bicycle. Similarly, a neural network that I just showed you needs to be trained. So if at all you want to get it trained, we need to bring in all possible images. So one possibility is you should have at least 100 apple images and 100 orange images. Just by having 2 apples and 2 oranges, it may not help the network get trained. So you need to have at least 100, or maybe usually the best practice is you should have minimum of 5,000 images. Okay, and in that 5,000 images, 2,500 images should be of apple and another 2,500 images should be of orange. Then it is possible for us to classify data. But again, that is for a very robust and reliable network. But at least for our case, we should have a minimum of at least 20 apple images, 20 orange images. So what you can do is you can go to MATLAB, Google, and download minimum of 20 apple images from Google. Again, 20 orange images of different features, different textures, different colors, okay, different shades. Okay, then you start including it here and train the network. Okay, that is the only way by which you can make the network accurately classified. One second part is, see, we are now able to do the classification here, and then maybe include the images here, and that is the first way of making this algorithm work much better. Second important point is, yes, yeah, here you have to now define what should be your network size. See, in the previous case, we had taken it as 10, 1. 10, 1 is there are 10 neurons in the hidden layer and 1 neuron in the output layer. That is what we had considered. But now we are trying to take 1024 inputs, and then that 1024 inputs are now getting processed by 10 neurons in the hidden layer, and then it is coming down to 1 neuron in the output layer. So now drastically from 1024, you're bringing the output to 10 and then to 1. So what would be a better approach is, okay, the hidden layer size should be, the number of neurons in the hidden layer should be 2/3 the number of inputs in the input layer. So please remember this. Suppose if you're talking about 2/3, what is 2/3 of 1024? So that number of neurons should be made available in the hidden layer. Then again, if at all you want to bring it to one output, you should again see the next layer should also have 2/3, okay, neurons in the second layer. So now you should define how many number of layers you need, okay, so that you're able to get at least one output. So this is the second point where you have to consider the architecture of the network so that it will actually classify the apples as apple, orange as orange. Okay, that is the second point. The third important point is this training parameters. So you are trying to now tell that yes, I want the network to get trained so that okay, the goal is until the error becomes 1 e power minus 9 or epochs is 2000. So what you can do is you can change these three parameters here. Okay, not the first one but the second and third one. So you can define 1 e power minus 9 as 1 e power minus 10 minus 12 minus 13 and so on, and you can make this epoch has 4000 5000 epochs. Okay, and then keep on training the network. So these are the three important steps in which you have to modify the code and make sure that your network gets trained properly so that it can classify apple and orange. Okay, so I hope you understood the concepts here. So if at all you have any doubt, let us discuss further. Okay, now the task that will be given to you is, okay, I want you to download at least around 20-30 apple images, 20-30 orange images. Okay, then convert it from RGB to gray, and then try to define the network size. Okay, and then try to set the training parameters, and then try to see whether you can classify your apple as apple and orange as orange. Okay, so there's a small exercise that I want you to do. Okay, and then try to make sure that you are familiar with the process of neural network classifiers. Okay, yes. Now, is it clear to you? Shall we go to next project? Any doubt you have, please let me know so that we'll go to next project. Yeah, students, please know somebody can tell me whether you have followed. So that we'll go to next important project for today.
Sir?
Hello.
Yes, yes.
Okay, continue.
Sir, you told to download the images. Those images we can't be accessed in our online, sir, MATLAB while we are using.
No. Okay,
How
okay,
we
okay.
can do?
Yeah. What you do, see, instead of classifying your apple and orange which we have taken, okay, MATLAB itself is having some database for neural networks. Okay, MATLAB itself is having some database. You can download use those database for classification. For example, what you can do is if you can go to MATLAB. Okay, so in MATLAB there are some videos available. Okay, and that videos you can take it and convert videos to frames, so that you will get at least some 30-40 frames from that video, and all of them will be having the same object, but with small motion available within those objects. So that is one way. Okay, you can do it. The second possibility is you can see whether any in the MATLAB itself there are some online database available. Maybe I'll also search and let you know. Yeah. Yes.
Sir?
Ah.
How many minimum number of iterations should the training happen?
Okay, there are two conditions that you can set. One is number of epochs. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Epoch basically refers to, suppose if I go to this MATLAB program, see that MATLAB program, if you see here, I have taken input as I1 underscore I3, I2 underscore 3, like that I have taken this image. Each is of 1024 cross 1. Since
Yes,
this size is 1024 cross 12, okay, this entire size input is 1024 cross 12, right? There are
yes, sir.
1024 rows and 12 columns. If I pass this entire data into my neural network once, okay, and ask it to process, that is called one epoch. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Now, if I tell two epochs, I'm training the network by taking this entire matrix twice and giving it as an input. That is epoch equal to 2. Now, epoch
Okay, sir.
equal to 2000 implies I'm trying to take the same data and giving the data 2000 times to the network for it to be trained. Okay, so you can now tell whether you want to have 2000 epochs or you want to have 100 epochs. So this is where you can now decide, okay, which is the best one. Okay, now the other possibility is, see, the training goal. The training goal basically refers to, you are told that for image I1 underscore 3, your output should be equal to 0.2. So when you apply I1 underscore 3 first time, your output may not be equal to 0.2, it may give you 0.8, for example. So when you take 0.8 and take minus 0.2, it will be 0.6. Okay. Now you keep on training the network or change the weight such that the error between the actual target, that is no your point 2, and the output of the network should be 0.00009, the 00001, that is 1 e power minus 9. Until then, you want the network to get trained.
Okay, sir.
So if whichever is the fastest one, you try to consider this. So you can play around with these two lines, these two parameters. One is above the error. Okay.
I tried to change those parameters,
Ah,
but while training the gradient, that
ah.
box gets filled first, so the iteration will be some 5 to 6. That's all. I can't go
Oh,
beyond that.
you cannot go beyond it. So what you need to now do is see this. You have seen this. We are trying to scale it by 100.
Yes, sir.
This you parameter you change it. Okay. Instead of 100, you make it as 20, 30. Okay. Why? Because if you make it no as less as possible, okay, then no, since you are using Tansig, no, Tansig will give -1 +1, it will usually get saturated.
Okay.
Okay, so you try to make it as small as possible, this one. That means the entire data you divide it by a larger number. Okay, that is one
Okay, sir.
possibility. Okay, then you can keep trying this. And the second point is, you see that you increase number of images now. Okay,
Yes, sir.
each image should have different kind of no orientation, different kind of features, so that the network will try to learn for all these features. Okay,
Yes, sir.
okay. So any other doubts you have? Any other queries? Okay, then if at all we don't have, so today we will discuss about one important project, and I want know all of you to do it because tomorrow there is no class, and then we'll have next class on no Thursday. But no, this is the task that will be assigned to all of you, and I want all of you to try this task. Okay, yes. So the task that we're going to do today is the following. Okay. So we want the classification of images to be done, but it is the project that we're going to take up is a COVID related project. Okay, it is one of the important things that is happening in the research field, both across the India and across the globe. So they are trying to see how quickly we can identify COVID in a patient. Okay, now there is a concept called pulmonary embolism. Okay, so I think all of you are able to see the picture here. Yeah, see, this is the picture of the lungs. Okay, and then now you're able to see some dark uh, red and light red and so on. This dark red and all that shows that clot. Okay, and again see again there's a clot here. This is how the lungs appear when they get a clot. No, there's a clot, and then there is some cut which is done here to just remove the clot and so on. Okay, so there is a concept called pulmonary embolism. Okay, so let me tell what is pulmonary embolism is. Okay, so it's a blood clot that develops in a blood vessel, particularly in the veins. Okay, and particularly what happens is the blood clots will start happening from the left leg, okay, near your thigh or maybe below the ankle. Okay, so when people get aged, so they may have a lot of pain in the left leg, and that basically maybe some kind of pain would be there in your leg. That is basically because of blood clot. If you don't treat it properly, this clot will now start slowly flowing to the veins and enters your lungs. Once it enters the lungs, then it will start blocking the lungs. Then you'll have a lot of problem with respiration. Okay, so the blood vessels travels to the lung artery where it suddenly blocks the flow of blood. So when the blood starts getting blocked, so what happens now? You may not be able to breathe properly. So when you start, once your lungs get blocked, you will have a lot of issues regarding to respiration, and then you may fail. Okay, you may not be able to breathe, and then people die. Okay, now that is called as pulmonary embolism. Pulmonary embolism refers to blood clots in the lungs. Okay, now it is found that almost it's a most common preventable cause of death in hospitalized patient. That is what it tells that. That means whenever a patient gets hospitalized because of the breathing problem, okay, so it is possible to treat the patients. That is what pulmonary embolism is, and it is found that almost 6 lakhs death occur every year only because of this pulmonary embolism, and if they don't get proper treatment. Okay, then pulmonary embolism occurs in patients almost 80% without any warning signs or symptoms. That is one of the important things that why we are supposed to now discuss this project. And now two-thirds of deaths due to pulmonary embolia occur within 30 minutes of embolization. That means no, assume that no somebody is getting a breathing problem, so they are unable to breathe. Okay, then they have a lot of suffocation. Once that the suffocation start within 30 minutes they die. Okay, almost that is what is the death rate that occurs. Okay, and death due to massive PA is often immediate. That means whenever people are unable to breathe. See what happens when you don't breathe, you don't have oxygen. Because you don't have oxygen in your body, then it is impossible for you to do anything and you die. Okay, and similarly diagnosis is also quite difficult because of the problems there. Okay, now nobody if you see, everybody will have some breathing thing, but since it is default, we don't observe how much time we try to breathe in per second per minute. So we have to be very careful with regarding to our breathing. Okay, now see, this is what happens. No, there is a small amount of blockage that can occur here, and that will travel through the lungs, and that may even go to your heart. From their heart, it goes to lungs, and then your entire lungs, if you see, may get blocked because of the blood clot that occurs in the leg. The blood clot travels, it will travel, and it will start completely. Once it travels through all these things, then this will go through the small clots of this. We call that as embolus. Then it will travel to the lungs. In the lungs, there are pulmonary arteries which are all very small in size. They are all now very small, very maybe micro meter dimension. So when this clot enters there, it will simply start blocking the entire lungs. Then oxygen exchange will be difficult, and you may not be able to get pure. Your blood may not get purified. Then the death occurs. Yeah. Now, what the product is, okay, this was existing since last 30-40 years. Not at all. This is not very new to mankind. Okay, pulmonary embolism is a well-known disease. But what happened is, after COVID-19 came into picture, people have now used this pulmonary embolism disease as one of the basis for diagnosis of COVID-19 patients. Okay, so usually what happens is whenever a patient has fever, okay, so that because of cold or because of some other reason they get cold, they get cough. Once they get cold, what happens? They may also have a cough. They may have fevers. Once you have a fever, you may not know that is COVID. So what you do, you take up a medicine. Maybe you take paracetamol, you take Dolo. Then maybe 1 or 2 days, the fever disappears. But your body is trying to fight the new virus, and your paracetamol tablet is also helping you out in this process. But this paracetamol tablet on your body, if it is unable to fight, then what happens? There is a lot of pus formation, okay, which is occurring in the lungs. Okay, the pus formation or the blockage that occurs in the lungs is also like it will lead to respiratory problems. So now the work that was done by these people, particularly this Frank Grillet, okay, from this France hospital, they have I'll show you this. Okay. The paper what they are trying to present. This is the work what was presented by them. Okay, this is one of the papers that was published very recently. Okay. Then there is another paper. This is another paper that was published in April 2020. Okay, so it's a very recent publication that has been done. Yeah, so now the paper article is all about pulmonary embolism in patients with COVID-19. Time to change the paradigm of computed tomography, that is CT imaging. So now what they have observed is, suppose if at all you want to diagnose a patient with COVID-19, okay, rather than going for that antigen test or RCPC or whatever test it is, you try to take the CT images, that is the chest X-ray of an patient. Okay, so now when you take the chest X-ray of a patient, then from the chest X-ray you can find out whether there is any blockage in the lungs, okay, or in the chest. And that is what we call as pulmonary embolism. So the blockage may occur because of pulmonary embolism, but that technique is now used to diagnose a patient with COVID. Okay, and this is a very recent paper that describes the entire thing about what they have done. See, they have taken almost around some 20-30 patients, okay, of whoever had COVID, taken their chest X-rays, and then they could find out how much of blockage is there, or pulmonary embolism occurs, and depending upon that, they were able to tell them, yes, this is COVID and non-COVID. Okay, so this is a very recent work that has happened. So this is basically, they use CT imaging techniques, and I think already some industry or some startup company in Bangalore has used this technique and developed a handheld device also to detect pulmonary embolism or COVID. Okay, but again, let me tell you, those models, whatever have been developed, at maybe very good, but there is a lot of scope for improvement. And tell you why there is a lot of scope for improvement. Okay, so to understand this project, I will share with you another paper on pulmonary embolism. That was this paper was published in 2004. Okay, that is a very old paper that is nowhere connected to COVID, but they are trying to define what is pulmonary embolism is all about. So according to this paper, okay, so he has clearly explained what is pulmonary embolism and so on. And then how things are changing. Everything has been explained there. So they are told what is acute pulmonary embolism, and then they are told certain guidelines also, right? Yeah. Now let me keep showing you some images. So this is the image of pulmonary embolism, wherein they have taken an image of a 32-year-old woman who presented with chest pain. The CT scan image has been taken. Similarly, a 45-year-old image, old woman image is data is also been taken, and then the doctor is very able to tell where is the blockage occurs. So they are trying to show it with an arrow and tell that these are all the blockages that can occur in the CT image, which they tell that it is pulmonary embolism. Okay, accurate pulmonary embolism, 58-year-old woman. Okay, yes. Similarly, there are some other images, 58-year-old woman image. Again, they are able to tell where the blockage occurs. If this is the blockage that they are able to find out by pointing out the arrow marks. Okay, this is a CT image that they have taken. Then here they have taken another method wherein they are able to tell, okay, CT scan reveals that the short axis of the right ventricle, that is the dashed line, right ventricle, is wider than the left ventricle. Okay, so that means if this is bigger than this, again, that is again leading to acute pulmonary embolism concept. So this is another image. So you find that there is another way of representing the pulmonary embolism, and they have taken multiple images. So if you can go through the entire paper, they have told you what are the various possible images, okay, or various possible blockages that can occur, in the chest X-ray or the CT image, which can define that it is pulmonary embolism. Okay, yes. So there are all these images that are available there. Okay. Once you further go through all these things, there is also one more such section here telling about cause of misdiagnosis of pulmonary embolism. That means, see, all the images that we saw till now are all basically going to tell you that whether it is pulmonary embolism or not, or blockage, okay, in a CT image. But there are also certain artifacts that can occur. There are also some defects. There are also some misdiagnoses that can occur. Okay, so for that also they have given some images. So they are told that, okay, this is a CT image of a 73-year-old woman with a chest pain. CT scan shows poor enhancement of the interlobar and middle lobar pulmonary arteries due to flow-related artifact. That means, so they are trying to show that there is some small amount of artifacts that can occur here. Okay, now these artifacts or these images, okay, are trying to give false information about the patient's CT image. So now this may also tell that yes, this is not actually pulmonary embolism, but because of the faulty images acquired, you may tell a patient that they have pulmonary embolism. So they have even told you what are the misdiagnosis methods that could be taken into consideration. Okay. Similar, another thing has been told here. So here they are telling the thrombus within the right intercostal artery. CT scan shows accurate within the medial segment of the middle image that was missed on the image. So that means there is another important activity that has to be considered. Okay, so so that you classify image as pulmonary embolism image and non-pulmonary embolism image. Okay, so like that, they have given multiple other sets of images also, and I want you to thoroughly go through this paper. Okay, I want you to clearly go through this all the paper, not the complete discussion about this paper. It has nothing to do with biology. Just try to understand from all the images what is pulmonary embolism image, what is non-pulmonary embolism image, and then I want you to just go through this and understand the concepts. Yeah. What is the next step now? The next step that I wanted you to do is, see, so these are all the images that I have downloaded from that paper, and I will share you all these images. And I'm storing that images with regarding to figure number, whatever is being given in the paper reference. Okay. Out of all these images that we have, there are few images that are related to pulmonary embolism, and there are certain few images which are not related to pulmonary embolism. Okay. To understand which are the images that are related to pulmonary embolism and which of them are not, you have to read this paper. Okay. If we can read this paper, you will be able to differentiate between those images which are normal and which are abnormal images. Now, taking these images, reading these images into your MATLAB program. See, I want you to read these images into your MATLAB program and then develop the entire code to classify the image as normal and abnormal. I want you to develop a complete MATLAB code for classifying the image as normal and abnormal images. I want you to first start with directly program, writing a NN program, that is neural network program, to perform classification. Now, to do this classification, you have to make sure that you don't resize the image to 32 cross 32. You make this resize of the image minimum of 128 cross 128. Okay. So by resizing it to 128 cross 128, I want you to run this, modify the code, change the network size here, change the training pack constraints here, and then make sure that you're able to classify the image as normal and abnormal. That is the task one that I want all of you to do today. Okay. Yes. So now once you do that, we will be able to now see whether our algorithm that we are going to develop is robust enough to accurately classify all the CT images as yes and no. Now that may not be accurately possible. So you may have to know further. We will go to next step. The next step would be this. Yeah. So we try to write a program which we will use the CT images directly to do classification. The second step is we will take the CT images and perform wavelet transform on those CT images. After performing wavelet transforms, we will see how to extract the features. See, I was telling you about all the features, wherever the blockages occurs, and I also told you wherever there is an artifact. We will try to extract the features, and using these features, we will see how to write a simple MATLAB program in which can train a network, not a deep learning, but at least a network, okay, neural network, to classify the features and tell this is abnormal and this is normal. Okay, and that will be our next task. Okay, so this is what our concept is for today. And then I want you to run this program. First, read this paper. Completely read this paper and understand what are the images. See, I've stored. I told you 34 means figure 34 implies I have stored an images as 34 here. Okay, so these images will also be shared with you along with this paper. So I want you to read this paper first and then try to segregate the images as normal and abnormal, and then write the MATLAB code for performing classification. Okay, this is the task that we are going to do today, and I want you to do it. But no, I cannot run the program. I want you to try this out and update me by Thursday. Is it clear to all of you?
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
So all the images do we need to run, or only 4-5 is enough?
No. You have to run all the images. Otherwise, you will not be able to do the classification.
Okay, sir.
So first you study the paper first. Okay. Then you will take a decision whether you want to take all the images or you want to take only the few images.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
But don't worry about what is this biology and all the things. This is nothing to do with all this biology. You just have to know, as a common man, as a engineer, you should know what is pulmonary embolism is, and you should know what are the images. So the entire features of that image is described in this paper. I want you to read this paper, because don't read the entire paper. At least the figure titles here. Okay, if you can read this, you'll know what that image is all about.
Okay, sir.
So by end of this week, I want all of you to develop this MATLAB program using neural networks, and tell that yes, the image whatever we have is the network whatever you are able to design is able to classify the image as normal and abnormal. Okay. Yes. So this is one of the important steps towards developing some novel algorithm with regarding to COVID-19 detection process. Okay. Can you try this, all of you? Okay. So any one of you have any doubt? Please let me know. But see, I want all of you to try this. Okay, it's a very important project. So until you learn how to develop some image processing algorithm which can help this scenario right now, the pandemic in India, can at least we can tell that yes, we have already done some work on COVID-19 projects. Okay, any queries you have, let me know. Otherwise, we'll stop here for today because the code is already shared with you. Yeah, the previous code, whatever we have, the same code you take it. We are able to have only two images there. Now we have multiple images. So you have to modify the code, use the same code, whatever was shared with you last class, and try to run it. Okay. If at all you have any errors in the code, let me know so that I'll be able to help you out to solve those errors. Otherwise, we can run this code. So let us stop here, or you want to ask any queries here? Please let me know. No, at least you can send me a chat message.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, I have a doubt in the program.
Okay.
There is one variable called target one.
Okay.
Yeah, in that we're dividing it by a number 100. So can
Yes.
you please explain again why are we doing that?
Okay. See, the thing is like this. See, this is the network activation function that we are used, TANSIG. Okay. So this is the final output that will be generated by the network activation function. So if you see the network here, this network activation function, we are configuring this as TANSIG. So the output here, whatever you are going to get at this point, the output what you are going to get here, that output will be having a value between -1 to +1. Okay, this is from -1 to +1. So if you see anything above minus or less than -2 will all be -1, and anything above 2 will always be +1. So only thing is between very close to 0. Okay, if your input is changing between very close to 0, you find that there is their slope is very large. That means there is a variation that can occur here. Suppose you change it very close to less than between this region. Okay, the changes are very less. So what happens? Okay, since we want the output to be lie within this region, so that you're able to train the network thoroughly, we are scaling the target by a factor of 10 or a factor of 100. Okay, that is the reason why we are trying to do that. Okay.
Okay.
So, because now we are treated as 0.2, but we want it to be 0.002. Instead of writing 0.002 here or 0.002, I'm just setting it, dividing it by 100, so I can keep changing this 10, 20, 100, 200. I can keep changing this so that I can see how the network training gets improvised. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Any other queries, students? Yeah, first let us do this project now, and I want you to complete this project. So this project itself, we will have multiple projects generated. So at least now some 6 projects we want to do it based upon this. Okay, I can we can define 6 different projects from this project, whatever I told you. Then another to maybe Thursday's class, I'll give you one more project that can be again further divided into 6 more projects. So each one of you will be doing small modules, and after the course is completed, you will be given 1 week time to complete the project. Okay, so we will be completing the course by next week. After that, we will be given 1 week time, and I will report also has to be submitted by you, so that you will be getting the certificate for this internship program. Okay, yeah. So today we have defined you one project, and then I want you to see how to improvise this project, and I'll tell you 6 different projects. Then tomorrow, that is on Thursday's class, we will take up another project. Again, from that we'll define 6 more projects. Each one of you can do small modules. Okay? Yes.
Excuse me, sir.
Yeah. Yes.
So soon after this session, you will be checking, right, to how to do that in online, because many of us are using through online, sir, MATLAB.
I will check it out. I'll check it out and update you. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Now the other possibilities, no, yeah. So suppose one of if enough of friends has a MATLAB, why don't you do it together?
Sir?
If your friend is also, no, you assume that one of your friend is having a laptop and MATLAB is loaded there, you can try doing it together. Okay. But, I'll check that with the online thing and I'll update you.
Yeah. We could have done, sir, because of this pandemic, we are not together, right? We are in different places, so we can't do it, sir.
Okay, but you can share the laptop screen, right?
Yeah.
You can try that, not an issue.
So, but
When you're,
still, once you check and update us, sir.
I will do it. I will do it. Definitely, I will do it. Okay. See,
Yeah.
this is the time to do teamwork. Now, even that your friend is not doing anything, you can ask her to keep her laptop open from remote access. You can now start trying your own examples. That's why you have to share, your start helping each other so that you can do things properly. Okay, anyhow, I'll try to now check it out and let you know.
Excuse me, sir.
Yes.
Sir, today's project is individually we have to perform.
No, this starting one, whichever I told you, I want all of you to do it.
Okay, sir.
I want you to try all of you. I want you to try this, running this program and classifying the image.
Okay,
Okay,
sir.
next class
Okay.
I will tell you what are the individual projects,
Okay, sir.
but that will be based upon this project only.
Okay, okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Any other queries you have? Okay. If you do not have anything, let us stop here. Okay. I'll stop the recording. And if at all